We welcome in our guy, Baldy. Baldy, what's going on?
Happy New Year, guys. Good to be with you. Thank
Happy
you.
New Year's as well. We're so happy to have you here. And Baldy, we haven't talked to you since Russell Wilson has been benched. How shocked were you that Sean Payton made that move last week?
Well, I think it was the way it was handled was pretty much shocking. I think you can see that there was friction there, but not to the point where you're benching a guy and basically saying, "Let's see what else we have. We're ready to move on," from a very difficult contract to get out from underneath. So I think the way it was handled wasn't very good for any veteran player. Nobody wants to be done like that. Nobody wants to be undressed on the sideline like he was, 2 weeks prior. And so I think I was, but when you read into it and they're looking at, from the bye week on, they were looking to get out from underneath this contract or take a pay, too much money is being committed to the quarterback for what they're getting from the quarterback. And so it was part business decision. I get some of that because that's how owners think, but it was all okayed by Sean. So I guess I was surprised and caught off guard like a lot of people.
Baldy, with all the craziness that happened last week, there's been a few reports that come out this week and say that Russell still has potential to be the Broncos quarterback next year. He says he wants to be back. The team says, they won't move on him away from him if he's their best option. In your mind, is there any way that Russell Wilson comes back as the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos?
I don't think so. I mean, you can never say no. I mean, look at what San Francisco did with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like they basically didn't even let him practice, and next thing you know, he's their starting quarterback. Like these things can have a way of working themselves out, but I got to believe that they're looking at Jared Stidham, whether it's a legit look or not, I don't know, but I think they're looking in a different direction, and I'd be surprised if he's their quarterback next year. I know things can work out that way, and maybe you can't trade him. Maybe the contract doesn't work out, or however, like maybe you are stuck with him, but that's not a good feeling to basically announce that we're stuck with you, Russell. Let's make it work. Like that's not any long-term answer to building a franchise.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about Jimmy Garoppolo and how that all played out. Like we spent so much time talking about Derek Carr last year because it's such a similar scenario, but that was crazy. Like they don't even give Jimmy Garoppolo the playbook. He knows he's just dead. Like that is wild.
Yeah.
I'm curious though. When you look at this game last Sunday against the Chargers, did you think that the offense looked any different with Jarrett Stidham in charge instead of Russell Wilson?
Not really. They got two big plays in the passing game, but that's about what they were getting from Russell, anyways. Russell went games without turning the ball over. Stidham went through the game without turning it over. They got McLaughlin involved a little bit more than I think they had in the past, or at least recently. I'm a big Jaleel fan. But outside of that, things, there's not a lot to work with. I mean, Russell used to throwing to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and, Doug Baldwin at one point. Like, they don't have those options in Denver. So I always thought they were somewhat limited, especially when Cortland went down.
Yeah, Baldy, we all agree with you that we don't see really Russ coming back in all likelihood. So that means Sean's going to be looking for a quarterback, whether it's free agency, the draft. You've watched so much Sean Payton film. What does he look for in a quarterback? What do you think his ideal quarterback has in terms of traits and skills?
Well, obviously beyond the commitment, like the quarterback has to run the run game. So, one of the things that Drew Brees always did was, he just read the box. It could be 3rd and 3, but they're playing pass coverage and the safeties are deep. Let's hand it off to Pierre Thomas, or, let's hand it off to Reggie Bush. Like he did the run game. So you got to be able to handle everything. And then, like, this is not a knock on Russell, who Russell is. But, the one thing about Drew Brees, and there's not a big difference in height, although Drew is taller, but his footwork was better. And he wasn't quick to leave the pocket. He did all his work from the pocket. Because as soon as you whirly bird around or you escape, you're basically cutting the field in half. And now you're running a scramble. And some receivers are good at that, and some never learn it. And I thought it was a real struggle for Denver when Russell did that. But that's the way he's used to playing. I don't think he wants any kind of a helter-skelter guy. if you have a dual threat quarterback, there'll be plays in there like Taysom Hill for a dual threat quarterback. But it doesn't involve dropping back, hitting your back foot on a 5-step drop and leaving the pocket just because it gives you better sight lines or better vision. So I think a guy that can win from the pocket. And Stidham is taller and he sees the field probably better. And receivers see the quarterback better too. It's vice versa. So I think those two things would be like, and then, just the overall level of commitment to building the perfect game plan for each week.
Baldy, you were talking about the pocket, and I really feel like quarterbacks and O-line have to play together to, eliminate sacks and allow for, big plays to happen. Do you feel like the offensive line looked better as a whole with Stidham kind of sitting in the pocket and not trying to escape? They only gave up 2 sacks. Do you feel like they performed better as a group?
I do. I do think they did. And I think when Russell was getting hit a lot earlier in the year, I think it was difficult on McGlinchey and Powers and some of the guys. Because honestly, right now in this league, if you're Mike McGlinchey and you've got, your end and you're blocking him and you're in pretty good position and Russell escapes to the right. Well, if you're a tackle in this league, you got to let that guy go. Like you can't get caught holding on to a shirt sleeve or whatever as he's leaving the pocket. And you don't know he's leaving the pocket until that end pulls away. It's hard. It's hard. Like you got to let him go. And you might end up giving a pressure or a hit, but you can't weigh that against getting a holding call and getting backed up 15 yards. And in this offense this year, when they were faced with the 2nd and 20, I mean, look at the numbers and see how many times they converted once they got deep into, behind the sticks like that.
When you look at the rookie quarterbacks who are going to be coming out in the draft this year, which one do you think would be the best fit? Not necessarily just like the best player who would be the most productive, but who would be the best fit for, a guy to work with Sean Payton and try to make this offense work out?
Well, I don't think you can throw it any better than Michael Penix threw it the other day.
My guy.
I don't think you can throw it any better than that. But I don't know. I only know Caleb personally. I've only sat in the film room with Caleb and gone to his football camp, and only gotten to know Caleb. I know how he is. I know how smart he is, and I know how talented he is. Like, some of those things would excite Sean. Like, I remember, I did a Big 12 games for a long time. And I remember when Jared Stidham, came out of Stephenville, Texas, and, followed Art Briles to Baylor. And, I remember the buzz about him, and, he started, got hurt and all this kind of stuff. But, you kind of get to know these kids early on. Like Mahomes, people were saying his mechanics can't work in the NFL and all that kind of stuff, except Sean knew that if they had the 11th pick, they were taking Patrick Mahomes. Kansas City knew that, and they jumped in front of him and they took him. But so I can only speak for Caleb. I can't speak for Drake and, Daniels and Michael right now. Like, I know that the makeup of Caleb would excite Sean Payton. Like you could sit, like when he was 16, 17 years old out of Baltimore, like he knew how to attack cover 2. He knew how to attack quarters. Like he knew the route combination. And then his arm, like I actually compared him to a bigger, faster, I'm not faster, but bigger, stronger Russell Wilson when he was 17. His arm was just as strong. So, but he's bigger, maybe not as fast as Russell back then, but there'd be a lot to like about Caleb Williams.
Man, Baldy, I love what you're saying about all these guys, but specifically Michael Penix. We've been talking about him all day. And when it comes to these quarterbacks, we're probably going to be talking rookie quarterbacks for the Broncos moving forward because the Broncos aren't going to have money to spend with having so much dead cap for Russ's contract. And so a big question is going to be, how good is the Broncos offensive line? And at parts of this season, they've looked great. At other times, maybe because of Russ not helping them out, they haven't looked very good. How do you think this Broncos offensive line is? Are they mid-tier, good, bad? Where would you put them?
I think they're good. I think they're good. They basically played together all year, and so that's you got a healthy bunch. That's part of the conundrum in all these different places now. And Detroit's kept their line reasonably healthy. They've had some injuries, Ragnow and left guard. They may have been in and out, but for the most part, they're lining up their 5 guys. San Francisco, for the most part, are lined up their 5. Philadelphia, for the most, some of these teams that are going to the playoffs, you can point to the offensive line and they've been pretty stable. So I like the stability factor. Like these guys, you could trust them, just their histories and this season, trust them to build a whole off season together and another year of just continuity. Now, if you want to upgrade one of the positions, it's a great draft for offensive tackles, maybe the best draft we've seen in a long time. There's going to be a lot of good ones to choose from out there where you can basically get your Penei Sewell, and build your anchor around your offensive line. Andrew Thomas, Tristan Wirfs. I mean, there's that level of player in this draft this year.
I'm curious, just because you brought up Julio McLaughlin, I've been wondering why they don't use him more. And obviously, Samaje Perine has been good, and Javonte started the season well, has kind of slowed down a bit. But is there something, too, with a rookie running back, especially a smaller rookie running back, trying to limit touches early and don't let him get hurt in this first year and kind of just get him to year two?
Maybe. I mean, they had a pecking order. Samaje was their third down back, 2-minute drill back. He was good in the screen game. But Jaleel gave him the pop in the screen game. He's a guy that catches the ball in traffic really well. He can pop runs. But sometimes you've got to, you got to give him 10 tries to pop a run or 2 runs. And, when he wasn't popping them, he wasn't gaining many yards either. So he had a lot of 1-yard gains. So I think some of that is, Javonte's going to break a tackle. He's a little better, stronger at contact than Jaleel is. But Jaleel just has this magical feat, that just can get through some stuff and into the secondary. So I just still think they were willing to give him as many touches necessary. But that might change. You see like Devin Singletary in Houston right now. They felt like that way about him in Buffalo. But the more you give it to Motor Singletary, the better he gets. Like he doesn't wear down and he doesn't get hurt. And we don't know that about Jaleel yet because we haven't given that kind of volume yet.
And Baldy, the more we have you on our show, the better we get. Thank you so much for your insight. Love having you on.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Happy New Year. I'll talk to you. I guess we'll talk at the end of the season next week.
Yeah, crazy enough. We're just a couple days away. Thanks, Baldy.
All right. Take care, guys.
See ya.
See ya.
Man, how crazy is it that we're just 4 days away from the end of the Broncos season?